Welcome back. So we're here now talking about building a successful customer and product strategy. I'm really excited to talk to our speaker here today, Nitin Mathur. Thank you so much for being with us today. Do you mind telling the audience a little bit about your role at TE and what you have going on right now?
Thank you for having me today. As you said, I work for TE Connectivity. My role here is to head marketing for our industrial solutions segment, which is one of our business segments at TE.
Excellent. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about a successful customer and product strategy. Can you provide our audience with an overview of what this current strategy looks like for you?
As you know, TE Connectivity is a global industrial technology leader, and we're really focused on creating a safer, sustainable, productive, and connected future. We have a broad range of connectivity and sensor solutions, which really work in harsh environments and focused on enabling advancements in transportation, industrial applications, medical technology, energy, data communication, and also your home. So as we think about the company, we have a really broad portfolio, deep technology expertise and a global footprint to design and make our products closer to the customers. And our customers are engineers, right? So when you think about, engineers, we're looking at design engineers, component engineers, who are primarily creating applications and looking for the right components for that application, given the performance criteria. So our marketing strategy is really to support the TE's overall business strategy with a key focus on driving customer and revenue growth, right? Also thinking about increasing the loyalty or the stickiness around our parts, both with large customers as well as small customers. So as you think about the strategy, there are a few key pillars of the strategy. The first one, really, given the depth and the breadth of the portfolio, it's critically important for us to create portfolio awareness and familiarity, right? What are key products and how do they really fit into customer needs? And that's sort of one of the strategies for us. It requires a lot more working around sort of areas around targeting our customers and understanding deeply what our customers need and being able to provide the relevant parts of our portfolio for them. The second piece here really, as it relates to customer and product strategy, is in partnership with our product teams and our engineering and strategy teams, marketing teams focus a lot on identifying and targeting profitable pool of customers where we see strong potential for growth. So our strategy is to really be able to identify what are those share gain opportunities which exist in this large, diverse market. And lastly, I would say key part of our strategy is to really focus on customer journey, right? Understand the paths to purchase, identify what are the areas of improvement. These improvements could be around people, process, technology, and increasingly these improvements are a lot about digital customer experience, right? How our customers find our products, how do they really evaluate what they need? How do we make sure they understand the technical specifications of our products? How do they order small quantity parts to sample? So on and so forth. So really making it easy for our customers across the buying cycle to work with TE.
I'm glad you mentioned improvements. What do you think or what do you see as like the 2 or 3 maybe most important things to consider when you're reevaluating your strategy?
I think there are a couple of things which we constantly think about. First of all, it's important for the strategy to be customer backed. Understanding where your customers are heading, having a better view of technology trends, new applications. As we serve broad markets, we also have to keep, in mind where is the market going and what is the demand of various end markets, right? So having a long view, being able to look around the corners is really important, always with a customer lens in mind. For example, are people buying lesser cars, during the pandemic? Are home appliances and the demand for home appliances going up and spiking up? Where are we seeing more investments coming in? It's very important to keep that trend along with your customer focus in mind. So that's part number one. Part number two, I would say, is keeping an eye on how the path to purchase and the customer journey itself is changing. Right. So last year, if you think about last year, all companies, including ours, we saw a significant change in how customers are interacting with us and our partners, right? And being able to understand this, it's not a linear exercise. You have to really think about working with your sales team, with your marketing team, with your engineering teams, as well as your channel partners to understand how that customer behavior is changing, right? So if I think about industrial companies, while the dynamics are different and the pace of change is different, we've got to keep that in front of us. For some of the consumer-facing companies, if you think about examples around you, the adoption and change was much faster, right? I mean, look across in our own personal lives how some of our favorite, restaurants or bakery shops, they had to sort of change and adapt that. So I think the point of this exercise, irrespective of whether you're serving large enterprises, small enterprises, or end customers, you got to be able to see how that journey is changing, not just because it's induced by a pandemic, but I think there is a regular change you got to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really important point, to meet the customer where they are and to be responsive to their changing demands. So, what do you think are some of the most like beneficial insights that can be gained when you're cross-referencing customer and product profitability?
Yeah, I think I'd call out two key things here. One is this concept of customer lifetime value. It's a critical metric to keep in mind. A lot of companies, as we think about customer profitability, if we look at it purely from a first transaction standpoint and look at our cost of acquisitions, it could be misleading, right? So it's really important to understand what is the revenue and profitability potential of a particular customer over the useful life of the relationship, right? And keeping that in front of us. Especially true for marketers. And as we think about building digital customer journeys, we are going to use the cost lever. We are going to look at investments and understand what the cost to serve model is. And for that, it's really important to understand what that true lifetime value is. If we get fixated over point in time data, then I think the statistics are going to look very different.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I would say, it's also equally important to understand what are the micro segments you're really chasing. So the importance of customer segmentation, understanding what particular customer segments are really profitable for you, as well as which are the ones you can truly scale over a period of time. Can you really serve these customer segments? And as you think about the small and medium enterprise market, or even some of our large customers, it's important to make those trade-offs, right? What appears to be highly attractive and profitable may not be the best and most profitable pool of customers to serve or scale over a long-term period of time, right? So more often than not, we may find ourselves saying no or deprioritizing certain customer segments, or figuring out, hey, are there other low-touch ways to work with our partners to be able to service them rather than directly looking at that. So I think those are two important things to keep in mind.
And I think that as we think about the customer journey and being customer centric, something that I keep thinking about and that keeps coming up throughout all of these different sessions that we're having at the event is how important internal alignment is, and how important it is to to try to work through those existing silos. So what are some ways that you think we can, or you can bring together internal teams just to really ensure this long-term success?
That's a really, really interesting question, right? At TE, we do value teamwork and moving at the pace of the customer. These are sort of ingrained in our DNA. Having said that, and having led few large scale transformations myself over my career, I can tell you it's hard, right? And I would also say that no one comes out of this unscratched, right? So that's a given, and I have some sort of bruises and scars of my own. But here are some things to consider when you are driving large scale initiatives and you're trying to bring teams together, right? This is just sort of given my experience. I would say here are a few points to consider. Number one, clarity around strategy and spending time upfront on why what we're doing is important and why now. I think it's critical. And it's also important to back that up with voice of customer, right? Number one. Secondly, I would say, as you're thinking about building a cross-functional team or enrolling people, focus on identifying and recruiting what I call, cross-functional cause champions, right? Or people who are believers who will work hard to bring others along. And in every organization, in every space, it's important to identify people who are passionate about that particular area and bring the level of energy required to be able to drive the initiative. Then I would say simplicity and clarity around goals is very important. So laying the strategy and the why is important, but also how do you make the goals simple and clear? What are we chasing? What's the prize at the end of the journey, right? And having a structured sort of program management or change management office to keep everybody informed, right, is critical. You have to earn the right to move forward, especially when initiatives require capital investment, right? Time, effort, money. How do you make sure that you are staging yourself and earning the right to move forward? And for my colleagues working in sort of large, complex, matrix organizations, executive sponsorship is important, right? Depending upon what's the level of the business impact, you might want to figure out, at what level do you want to involve your executives? And personally, having led a couple of these initiatives, when you have the right level of executive sponsorship and awareness, things move in large organizations. In some cases, in cases of customer-led digital transformation, even board wants to get involved. So how do you really up-level that story to be able to inform and engage board and be able to answer the right questions? And board's task here is obviously ensuring that the shareholder value is increased through the initiative. So they're not going to get into operational areas, but how do you really up-level that story? And I think that's the point around executive sponsorship. The other thing which I would say, lastly, move with speed and be comfortable when things break, because things will break, right? And how do you sort of move with speed and be more agile is important. Celebrating some of the milestones is important on the way, because you want to make sure that people are aware of the reward at the end of the journey. So hopefully that helps.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that. We have just a few minutes left, but I want to talk about, of course, something that keeps coming up is, how quickly the, demand and product demand was changing over the past year. So, when you're thinking about product availability, how do you think about ensuring that you're agile, not just to market conditions, but also being responsive to customer needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. B2B industrial markets are bound to have some level of cyclicality, right? And managing through these up cycles and down cycles is critically important. I think what is also important to understand is our customers really depend upon us for manufacturing, critical applications. And we have a huge responsibility here as well, just beyond commercial commitments. And as I think about, the challenges there, the number one thing which stands out is really the level of transparency and communication we need to have with our customers during these up cycles and down cycles, right? And as you think about sort of the increasing consumerization in the B2B space, as well as how people are starting to relate more and more their personal experience from the consumer space on the B2B side, we need to keep an eye on sort of critical areas which might be important for our customers, right? And what matters really most to our customers in the B2B space, and not just get stuck in this, my industry dynamics is different mentality. So when I think about customer needs in context of, what drives customer preference during these cycles, and tips the scale in favor of one manufacturer versus another, it's actually about transparency of information. It's not just about product availability as an inventory, but also about lead times, shipping times, pricing and technical specification, availability of, testing and warranty information, compliance information, ability to order small quantities for design and process, right? Samples, right? Imagine, how all of that and agility around that can help you really win the deal. So those are really important. But I would just stress that, as we go through cycles, it's clearly important to be, in strong communication with the customers, be transparent around what you're seeing, because many of the challenges you are seeing on your side, your customers are seeing not just from other suppliers, but also from their end markets. So, that dialogue and that transparency is really critical.
Absolutely. And I think we'll go ahead and wrap up on that note. Thank you again for being with us today. This was Nitin Mathur with TE Connectivity. We were talking about building a successful customer and product strategy. We'll be right back with our next session.